to the 17th edition of the Mumbai International Film Festival 2022. In today's workshop, we will be learning about VFX, the ever-evolving tool for storytelling. Visual effects are an integral part of cinematic storytelling, and they have evolved over the years, adapting to new techniques and technologies. And today we have with us Mr. PC Sanath, who's going to demonstrate the same for us. Can you please have a huge round of applause for him? Sir is the co-founder and director of Firefly Creative Studio in Hyderabad. He has been creating magic on screen for the past 2.5 decades, and he has also been the VFX supervisor and creative director for gigantic cinematic ventures such as Bahubali, Robot, and Ega, to name a few. So he has also won many national and state level awards for best visual effects. And in this masterclass, while illustrating the way visual effects help filmmakers in visualizing and realizing their cinematic dreams, so we'll also point out towards the potential possibilities VFX offers to the storytellers and the future, with new frontiers evolving to the AR and VR world. Now, may I please request our Assistant Administrative Officer, Mr. Ashok Shinde, to felicitate our guest. Thank you so much, sir, for gracing us with your presence today. The floor is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you for a fantastic introduction. And I welcome everybody. And I really appreciate your presence here. I'll try to explain my topic as much as detail as possible. And I'm available here anytime, any questions you have. After the session also, even outside, I'll be available. Okay. So to briefly tell you about myself, I have studied animation, and way back in '95. So those are the days we used to do animation using drawing, hand-drawn animation, and we do cell animation. And these are before the computers came and changed the entire industry. Okay, so from there, what put me forward further in my career is my interest in storytelling. So I gone into the animation because to tell stories. Then because of that interest in storytelling, I was able to adapt all the tools came on the way to make my job easier. That is telling stories. So that way when computers came, I find it as a better advantage to do it better, faster, and bigger. Right? So I never saw it as a thing which is going to stop my profession. So with that introduction, I'll start with visual effects. Visual effects, all of you must be knowing, because nowadays there's no film without visual effects, or any shows, something or other will be there as a visual effects, correct? So the biggest plus point as well as the negative point of the visual effects came by its definition, correct? What does the definition of film visual effects? Visual effects says when a filmmaker was unable to do something they find it difficult, right, to achieve. That is when the filmmakers think about visual effects. If you look at the definition of filmmaking or the people who make film, you will understand for a filmmaking, there is a director, there is a story writer, there is the craft of filmmaking. They say there's about 25 crafts. Correct? If you look at it, you won't find visual effects in that, right? But on contrary, if you look at any film, you won't see any film without visual effects, right? So that is the real dichotomy we go through in our profession, because visual effects has been defined as a place where any of this technician find it difficult or impossible to do their task. Correct? So to start with a cinematographer who feels, okay, certain shot is not possible, some location is somewhere else, and I need to have character. or a fight master who want to choreograph something, right? Or a storyteller, that is a director, want to stage his story some location which doesn't exist, correct? These are the problems when they find and they started coming to it, right? So when I want to talk about visual effects, I would really like to start from where the film is started. So which I think is important for all of you, because we are talking about a tool which has a potential to do something, whatever you imagine. The limitation is your imagination for this particular tool at this point of time, correct? So if you want to do something, it is better to look at what film is, correct? So that is the reason I'll really start with a film. Very simple definition. The moment you search in the internet, you will find film as a visual medium, correct? And this clearly defines the limitations of the film. I'm purely talking about feature films here. Feature films, by default, is a series of images to fake movement, correct? So the first film, if you talk about, it was a technical experiment of few images put together, projected to generate some kind of motion. Photoreal action they were able to see on the screen, right? So you would have heard about Lumiere brothers, correct? So what does Lumiere brother did? They have invented a camera where series of photographs can be taken and projected back in a certain time so that it'll fake motion, correct? So as a VFX person, to get my grounding, I base my thinking here. I'm saying the first film is a visual effect. Till then, everybody was thinking photography is real, correct? Faking movement with a series of images is what made the film work. That people believe something is actually moving in a feature film, correct? So when we say, I'll just play a small clip. This is so important because this changed the history of the entertainment. So as story goes, when they screened it for the first time, people on the audience believed it's so real and the train is coming towards, and they said they ran away from the theater thinking that it is going to hit. And we are looking at a black and white image, and you can imagine the kind of visual quality at that point of time, because exposure may not be correct. It's a hand cranked camera, correct? So that means what? The speed is not fixed. Each and every time you crank, speed changes, the image speed will change. With all those things, it has a huge impact on people, correct? And everybody started adapting this medium for entertainment, okay? So you have to remember, this is the time film as a medium was not there, correct? That language of film, editing, director, nothing is there. Whoever is cranking the camera himself is the maker of the film. Everything he has to do, including processing, projection, all those things. And technology is evolving. Different technologies coming in, right? So that is the time these films are made. And the first people to really pick up this new medium is the so-called visual effects guys, right? So what did they do? Normally film screening, theater performances are happening on stage where the live people will act and do things, correct? From there, something they cannot do. How can you do on the screen is where it started. So with that, the first tool of film also came called editing. If you see this, many of you guys would have
From
seen
the
it.
Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
So this is from an archival footage. I just took it to give you an idea. So here there is a staging of execution of a queuing where there is a cut off the head of a person. And here they used two different shots, cut it at the right time to make a feel that her head is actually cut off, correct? So these are the kind of film started making first, because there's no story, there's no narration, it's only a single shot event it used to capture, right? So from there, the moment it started picking up attention and people are really crazy about seeing this, crowds are coming in, the next people who picked up this film is actually magicians, correct? What do magician do? Magician do things on stage, which is very magical. Means what? Nobody else can do it. They will make things appear, make things make disappear, and they have a narrative of that nature, which is grand. So they started making films. So you see, you would have heard about George Mellis, and he used to make films like this. There is a bat come in. It's a model animation. Now it looks basic, but from that it is turning into one character, and he'll do some action. Things will appear, disappear. Correct. These are typical stage shows, able to do it with the technology which is film, and the first visual effect tool, which is editing. Correct. So you have the timing, you cut it correct, and you made your story right. Correct. This is the time editing is not really evolved as a narrative storytelling as we see it today. So from there, these are the time when even the sound was not there. So he made a series of films. I'm not getting into too much of detail. At the same time, what you need to remember is in India also people were doing. Correct? You have one great storyteller, Mr. Falke. He was a photographer, and he gone to England to study. He learned technique. He bought the technology. He came here and he produced and he projected. His movies, if you see, there also you will see extensive use of. Some of them are even more. Here, what happens is our stories, the Indian stories also need a lot of imagination, and you have this kind of character. Story become more exciting with extensive use of visual effects. So you have a snake sequence, somebody is going underwater, fighting with a snake. All of them he was able to generate with the perfect understanding of technology and use of manipulating sets and what you call, whatever is available. So those days, it's not yet evolved as, okay, jobs are there for each and every department like that, correct? So something like this is evolved into, you would have heard about Great Train Robbery, where actually narrative, visual, film narrative started evolving. You have an introduction shot, and you have a cutaway where the scene is happening. This entire narrative structure which we were so comfortable with in writing, right? You would have read stories, literature. How do you translate the structure of literature into film? Started with these movies where you have multiple shots to tell a story. It is almost like each and every sentence of a thing, correct? So that is a time from the magic, people from literature, people from other walks of art started playing around with film, and what really picked up is narrative storytelling. Everybody want to hear a story more than a magic, correct? So like that, film evolved its language, the roles become clear, technology become more repetitive. You can actually buy a camera off the shelf, film off the shelf. Standards are coming over a period of 100 years, correct? In between, major revolution came in terms of sound, right? That changed everything. So the camera become more easy to handle. It gone out of the studio to people could carry on the street and shoot more sensitive films. So you don't need extensive lighting setups. You can shoot. So entire evolution happened over a period of 100 years, and it was keep on fine tuning, bettering, and the grammar of film evolved. People are professionals started coming, only doing films, correct? Then early 90s, again the major disruption started hitting film industry with computers coming in. The computers, given an opportunity, manipulate film images in digitally. Till then, it was always about you need to shoot on a negative, which is a chemical process, which is, we call it as an analog. So ability to manipulate is very limited. You physically have to shoot it, or you need to have a miniature and shoot it. You need to have people to perform and do it. may do some matte painting and shoot it to make an extension. Other than that, practically all the effects, everything happens only with a camera. Right? Different kind of cameras are there, but filmmaking only used to be with camera and negative. Correct. So with the coming in of computers, there is a little bit of disruption. People shot in film, taken into the computer, and started manipulating something by adding some colors or putting something in the background or changing the landscapes. So digital manipulation started coming, and the next big revolution happened within 10 years itself, that digital cameras, digital movie cameras come. It started as a electronic video camera, but digital manipulation and high resolution cameras came in. Correct? So the new tool came into the thing. Correct? So whoever was making film was adapting this camera as a filmmaking camera. So they are only looking at it like, how I used to make film, I will make film with this camera. Correct? So how do you set exposure? How do you set this one? When you try to look at it, it doesn't. It has its own limitations and problem. It doesn't have that kind of latitude what a film camera offers. So initially, all the technicians straight away rejected, saying that digital is not art. It doesn't work like this. Most of the lenses won't work here. The kind of depth and detailing is too much in digital. All those become negative. And if you remember in 1990s, 95, all those time, you'll see interviews of people outright rejecting, practitioners rejecting digital. But every time technology come in, it's impossible to stop, because technology has a habit of making it better and better. You understand problem, you will improvise, correct? So digital technology gone through massive improvement over a period of 10, 15 years, correct? So the quality of the image more than double. It is exponentially grown over a period of 5, 10 years, what you're talking about. So initially it was, we call it as a video resolution. What you shoot off screen is become 4K, 5K, or even 6K. Now projection standards are becoming 8K. Correct? So all this technology change happened a very short time, right? So it's a very short time for a standard practice which has been set over a period of 100 years to change quickly, because roles are defined. What does the cinematographer do? He actually owned the vision. He shoot, and the quality of the image he hold, correct? So if any of you have an experience in film camera, when actually they are shooting, director won't be able to see the image. Cinematographer only will be able to see, okay, and it need to be processed to see it on the screen, right? Editors, it was very difficult, because he has to cut the negative, join it together, and make a print. Then you project only, even the director will see what the outcome of the film, right? So they need to have a completely different way of thinking is needed. But in 90s, you have Avid came with a digital editing possibility, correct? So normal editors was doing it, they find it very difficult to adapt. They have the film in their head and edit. Here, give a possibility, you look at the visual and started making your editing, correct? That completely changed the entire way of narrating story with images, because people could actually put together shots and feel whether it's working or not, or make another option. Making options become anybody's job, right? So traditional editors who found it difficult to adapt slowly phased out, and you have young generation editors who come in and really fooled around, lot of mess up, lot of mistakes, but through that mistakes, the entire thing got evolved into another way of editing. Right now, somebody cutting a shot to 4 frames, 8 frames is very normal, which is unthinkable during film days. Like each shot used to be very long, right? So language of film changed. Now nobody really bother about is there a jump cut as a style. People use it so regularly and people take it for granted, right? Or the entire thing started, people started fooling on. All of them, they could do it because they can actually see it and see whether it's working or not working and change. And video, what you call the music video industry also helped. A lot of music videos which doesn't really follow the standard filmmaking process, completely changed the way people started seeing, and that also revolutionized. So with all these things, when we come back to film, next level of problem started, right? That is computers as a tool, image making. Other than the film, it can also do other types of entertainments. So you have computer games, right? You have other, now you have OTT that has another structure. Though if they show the film, you can do series of things. So many entertainment mediums that came in, and it's all neck and neck. And film actually started losing that sheen. Film, so-called film, is not a theater ultimate thing, is actually slowly going down, correct? So that also demand another way of looking at film, okay? So that is where I will step back to visual effects and see what visual effects can do to take the film or a storytelling to the next level, okay? So when you come about visual effects, when you see what people generally talk about is what they cannot do. So these are the kind of things people will do, which is very magical. It is part of the song or something appear out of nowhere, right? So you have butterflies with all kind of magical feelings, right? This is something you cannot shoot in real, and you need to use it digitally. So this is what filmmakers will start with. So if you look at it, early 90s or 2000 films, you'll see extensive use of visual effects like this, which is one look, you know it is visual effects. How much ever good you do, how much ever well it is integrated, it is visual effects, it's on the eye, you can see, correct? It also becomes a little bit of storytelling also. So you want a man to form from a smoke, only visual effects can do, correct? So to some extent, it used to support the story, but it also, some people will say, it'll take away from a realism of a film, right? So there, if you're connected to the drama, it will work, correct? The second kind of thing is dangerous and impossible actions, right? You have fight sequence, people falling. You'll see in every film of action, we are try to do all heroic action. Somebody kick and 10 people fly, and all this kind of action made it possible with visual effects. It's more of a relatively easier job. A lot of cleanups, what wires are using. So these kind of effects, people used to do it on the location, but with the coming in of the visual effects, they become little more careless, and a lot of work started coming in visual effects, okay? So this is the second type of common work. You don't even consider it's become a standard practice for every film now. So moving from this action, this one, when we started doing it, correct? So it is like you first come in with what a filmmaker cannot do, then make their help little more work, little more easier and faster. So some actions we started doing it, correct? Then from there, it went into some kind of makeup, digital makeup to make it look more real. So changing people's look, what generally did by a makeup artist, we started taking care. Want to make people look younger and older, we started doing, correct? So these are the things which you may not notice in the film. It is just for enhancement, correct? So practically you stepped further into making your filmmaking little more grandeur, okay? From there, from the digital makeup, once we started interacting with, we started getting into the locations. That is, sets are big thing. Where you stage your drama is an important thing for film, right? So can it be done in visual effects is what the next question came, and that's where things started. Maybe from locations which doesn't exist now. So here it is some stadiums, none of the stadiums exist now. So how do we give the same feel? So you shoot somewhere, blue screen, replace the background with a very realistic reconstruction of the earlier location, correct? So starting from there, in any kind of location, sometimes you will have actual references, sometimes you will have photographic references from where we need to make. So here we are supposed to do this is Chennai railway station. So previous one, if you look at it, you have a stadiums which is replaced. Here we need to generate a Chennai station, which doesn't modified and doesn't exist now. So along with the stadium, if you see, all the people also in the background have gone digital. Now there's nothing live people performing is only in the background, foreground. All the characters which is next to the building, walking around, vehicles, everything is digital. So you don't really need to go search around what you call props from those time. Those cars may not be available. You have photographs, we start building, correct? So people don't need to costume, put hundreds of people. You only put the people who is in the foreground where they need to perform. All the background crowd is gone digital, correct? So the level of involvement become bit more in terms of visual effects, correct? So street construction means immediately the budget will come. Putting a street like this will cost so much, right? It is practically building is costly for a art director. But for just one shot, can we construct a set? It's not possible. But to get that visual grandeur with the visual references, we started generating digitally much more easier and faster. Correct? If it done well, it is seamless. Nobody will even know. Correct? So if you see all these sequences, extensive work in terms of extension of location plus performances. You are replacing people, streets, all the vehicles are digital. Right? So whatever visual you see, almost 50% started getting replaced digitally. So if you start showing, there is no end to it. So much of possibility, correct? So in this, where it is coming is visual effects who came in as a support thing, actually started changing. Now there is an underwater sequence, correct? It is practically impossible to shoot, or even if you shoot, making an action is very tough. So we do it in a dry environment and replace the entire background digitally. So you have underwater with particles of things flying, moving, and they're doing the action. The bubbles coming out of mouth itself is digital. Correct? So now, with this, the moment you started able to replace these locations, right, to that extreme extent, next thing people will really think about is really fantasy worlds, believable world, which is impossible even to construction a set. Correct? So that brought in another genre of film back to the storytelling, where you have all anything you imagine, we can make it kind of scenario it generated. So all magical effect, locations, very what you call mythology kind of stories, which is not real, but it is pure fantasy. Right? So you will see Lord of the Rings and those genre of films. So here we've done for a film a world where there are multiple suns and there is a massive city, or all these kind of things become possible. So you shoot whatever you shoot, and after that 90% of the visual get changed to bring in that world here. So the entire song scenarios, sequences become given next level of visualization possible there. Correct? So from the moment you started fantasy world, fantasy characters came in, right? Because fantasy characters are which you don't really see. So you need to do a lot of prosthetics to make a human to look different. Correct? So can we have animated characters which can be magical? So somebody's hair turning into snake bolegato, it can be done. Right? So from there, even characters which doesn't even look like human. Usually what people used, human has to do that costume and act. So you need to have 2 legs, hands by default. But any kind of shapes and forms can be done because we started doing that in a photoreal animation space. So once this is done, again, anything and everything is possible in this fantasy world it came, right? So you have a hair need to be turned to a snake, which is photoreal and believable, it can be done. Correct? So limitation is again become, what are you imagining? What are the character you imagining? What do you want that character to do? The moment you are clear about, we are able to create and give life to it to extensive detail in terms of how much ever you can think of, that much about realism we can bring into this actions. So we have digital characters interacting with actors, heroes. So most of this film are very commercial films because those are the guys who wanted to do something out of the world, and they take the chances and build in this budget. But it is also possible to do in any kind of story. So from this, when you started this kind of character, somebody said, okay, then can we do animals? Because shooting animals is tough. You need to train them, and they may not do the actions you want, what you imagine, correct? And it might be dangerous, and a lot of animals are not available with a training. They won't, what you call, they may not be act the way you want it to act, correct? It's starting from simple things like underwater fishes which doesn't have expression. You have talking mosquitoes, right? Then you have hundreds of rats. The way you want to behave, we can actually make it. So everything is digital. So you have some rules also helped us get in visual effects, because shooting animals, there were a lot of laws constraints. So people start doing everything digitally. So you want thousands of them, do whatever you want. You tell it, we make it. It's become the character-driven scenarios in visual effects. So any of these actions become very much what you call possible. Anything you imagine can be done. But the difficulty with the animals is people are familiar with these creatures, correct? So the moment you are into photoreal animals, you have to be a little more careful, because it should not look animated. Its behavior should match what a general tiger will do, correct? When you come to the closer, every detail of it has to be sculpted in or made in. So the amount of work also get involved, and you also need to have that kind of study to build something like this, correct? So once you started doing it, it went into live characters. So certain actions a human or an actor find it difficult to do, we started replacing with digital. So now we've gone into the performance side of film. So these are around 15, 20-year-old work, where we were started using digital characters performing as a crowd and fight sequence, fully digital. Then we started replacing the actors' faces, digital performance. We started bringing in, replacing the heads of the performing artists. So this become a common scenario for all the kind of impossible and extensive actions, right? So the action sequences replacing with a digital character completely performing is a norm or now. So crowds, to bring that grandeur, everything digitally started happening, okay? So now once that is done, then it get into the large scale destruction. You have tsunamis, or you have any of natural calamities which is impossible to go to location and shoot. Or even if you make a miniature, it has a lot of technical limitations of the scale and things like that, or even some of this tools is not accessible. So you imagine we started generating those digitally, correct? So now practically we are saying anything you imagine can be generated digitally, correct? Now if you look at it beginning, you have a lot of live action footage and performance, and slowly one by one it is getting replaced digitally, correct? So then the real question started coming, how do you visualize something? How do you visualize a story is actually started changing now. Means what? When you write a story, you will really think of one character, right? You will think of a location. When you have your character and then you think of one actor, can he perform or not, correct? Then you need to have an art director. You comes and do whatever set is needed. That's a process you're set with, correct? When we say digitally so many things can be done, your way of imagining itself will start change, correct? So why should I settle down only for that thing what we can build, correct? So if you want to build completely digitally, the way you visualize entire thing is going to change. So your visualizing methodologies will change. So practically visual effects started influencing construction of the film, imagining of the film, plus how your visualizing also is started changing, correct? So there question come, is it really needed visual effects guys to do it? Okay, if you ask me, I'll say really no, because visual effects, we are able to do it because we started questioning the standard practice of doing. Filmmakers, how they do it, we started questioning and giving a better solution for them to tell the story we start doing. That's the only reason visual effects guys are there. Correct? And visual effects guys are there because we adapt technology without any loyalty to what we do. We would have used one software today, tomorrow something better come, we will drop it and go there. Correct? Another tool come, we will be adopt there. Our link is about how can I tell this story better? How can I make this performance better? If you come from that angle, everything become a possibility than a problem. Correct? So now that is where the next thing come. It's a previs. You would have heard about previs. Previs is nothing but a visual script for the film. For a film, you would write a script. So like writing a script, we actually make a simple animation of the character, block the camera, make your shot division, find out all kind of possibilities. This every technicians, normally what happens once you write a script, director will send it to a cinematographer, send it to one actor, and send it to all those technicians to discuss and visualize something, correct? Here, we are saying, based on the script, you visualize first whatever you can imagine, then you look shot by shot technically and say how it can be cracked, how it can be done to get this kind of effect, correct? So most of the time it happens mainly for actions and out of the world scenarios, but even certain scenes which find it difficult to stage and decide, we started doing pre-visualization, correct? So now if you look at it, visual effects come as a technical thing. The technical thing is forgotten. It is come into the pure storytelling stage of performance, staging, and action. And yeah, you use the technology to execute it, correct? So present day, the real challenge for a VFX artist is not really about learning the tool. It's really about 100% understanding of storytelling and how can I use my tool. Because the tool's limitations are non-existing now. Anything you imagine, you can be generated. The tools and systems become extremely powerful, right? So are you really thinking in terms of story and performance will be the question asked at VFX guy, and if you're not able to do, you won't have a profession. So from the pre-visualization is nothing but generating those entire performance. When you want to do a performance like that, what you need to have your characters, you need to have your locations digitally. Then only you can actually stage and see what happens, correct? That is when the visual design really comes in, correct? When you hear a story, how do you visualize a location, then go into build those world, and based on what you imagine and what you build digitally, partially something will get done as a set for making the story to happen. So couple of slides I'll quickly go through. This is again another 10-year-old work, because after this couple of work what we are doing is still not out. With the extensive digital intervention is happening in filmmaking. Some of them are IP not related. I am not able to show here. That's why I'm going back here. So what is the time now? Is it another 15 minutes I'll take? So traditional approach is what does you have a every department will be briefed and they will start doing their own work in a film environment. Here we've looked at the story and started getting into building a world. That is, where does the story come from? Where does that location? What is the history of that location? Beyond that script. So keep the script aside and find out there's a country called, there is a world called Mahishmati Kingdom, correct? In the story only some two characters and their story is coming. So to make that happen, how did this kingdom come in? Which period and time they exist? It's completely fictional, correct? We are saying somewhere in India, correct? So what can be that place? How the kingdom came up? What was the origin? Who are their ancestors? What kind of environment they lived in? What kind of politics happened there? What kind of social structure happened there? All these things we went back and started defining even before doing one single sketch of that location. So we have an extensive research and documentation process where we go through origin of the place, political ideology, why they're fighting, who are the people fighting. Correct? It is like really building a history for the entire thing. For a filmmaking, is it really necessary? It's not necessary. To tell a story, you will not really need it. But if you do this as your background for it, what happens is you're going to own a unique world, correct? So people would have heard of world building and you would have seen Marvel Universe, right? So Marvel, basically there's an entire set of comic book based on that story. They made a world and it came into the film. Right now, in India, we don't have that comic culture. What we have more is film. So from film, how do you go back and build a world is where it came from, this approach. And it's extremely tough and majority of the filmmaker find it difficult to follow. They may not do it also. So we are able to do couple of projects. So for every character, okay, what kind of past he is coming from, what is their parents, what made him do what he's doing now, is the kind of questioning we do to build a background history to the thing, which make your character looks really believable in the film. Now, majority of the stories may not be seen in the film, but now some of them get adapted as a animated movie or a novel or other mediums. It started coming from the same kind of world, so-called franchisee. Correct. So how do you design and build franchisee? You cannot do it the way we do regular filmmaking. So you need to step aside and started looking at differently. So you also need to look at all possibilities. Like how do I tell a film story is very different from how do I make a narrative for a gaming, or how do I make a comic book, or how do I write a novel. Correct. All of them are stories. Correct. So if you design and build a world, all these stories can be set in the same place. Is where the real potential of exploiting that what you call world for the producer, right? So what made it possible is because of your distribution network, which is based completely on digital. So if I make a digital asset, it will work for asset means a set or a character. It will work for a game. It's also work for a film. It also become a base for somebody else to develop further characters. So every characters in the film started having a story and can be built further is another completely different way of looking at building this world for the coming future. If you look at film started with a story, you finished it, you see it, you experience it, it's over, you move on to another film. But here, it built a solid base which can go different directions. So even if the film is not successful, it might go somewhere else, and you'll be able to make those uh, expenses what you put in the film, I mean, put in making that world come to you in a different way, is how you exploit the possibility of your idea. Right? So that's another potential which offers because of your ability to do visualization in a different way. So, so we have detailed documentation of everything, and based on that, what happens is multiple people can actually work. The moment your basic thought process is clear, you don't need director to tell everybody what to do. Right? So we'll be able to give the write up. The artists from across the world or different places can work. So each and every characters and this been built. Their props have been identified. The geography is in built. None of this, this kind of settings you may not see in the film. So the entire world, how is it looking? So the city center, where the main thing happened. Architecturally, a city construction has been done, and only 4 or 5 parts of it actually comes in the film, but the entire city has been designed. So, you might have an inspirational sketch. From there, how do you convert it into a proper model? Now here, if you look at it, we built that interior of the Mahishmati is this entire interior. So the set is being constructed only what you see it as this area. Rest everything is going to be digital extension, correct? So properly built, look and feel is fixed, and then the measurements are handed over to the art director for construction. So execution is based on what is your final image, which is going to come on the screen. So it's a reverse process. So look and feel, strategies of war. It's very difficult to tell what really happens to other thousands of people. So how do you decide how many people should be in the war? Is it 1,000 or 10,000 or 1 crore? It can be any of this number. Okay. What will work? What will work visually correct for our film and our story is where we will arrive by doing all these kind of trials digitally. All these are done before even one single frame of film is shot. So now you decide, okay, this many numbers of people has to be there. Also, if this many members of people has to stand in a location, what should be that area? So actual measurements are taken of a place, identify locations possible, put that digitally staged it and seen whether it's working. Correct? Some of the actions, what they are imagining, can it be done? We do a couple of animations and check. So when they are marching, there is things are locking in. All those proof of concepts as tested by animation, so that it can be staged more easily in the action. So like that, almost every location. Now, when you talk about a waterfall, how does that location will look? What should be the size of it? How do you make it believable design first? Then how do you deconstruct into a smaller scale where they can actually stage the action and shoot? All these plannings are become part of visualization and design. So the main difference is the moment you use these entire tools, the entire visualization process and what you can get an outcome really changes. Okay, so right now we are in an age, I told you already, there are tools which make you help to construct whatever you imagine, correct? Now the tools are gone to the next step. All of you would have been heard about artificial intelligence and AI based tools, right? So now it's already in practice. What does that mean is, if I want a mountain, I just write down mountain and system will give you 10,000 options of mountain. What do you want? Digital, not just a photograph. Google map, you try, you will get mountain. Image, Google search, images, references. That's what people used to reference and do it, correct? Now tools are there, you put mountain, you will give one shape. So you decide, no, I want 10 things, you just make a drawing, it'll actually give you. You tell, this is going to be this many, this is the kind of geography I want. If you tell, it started giving you option, right? So what AI is basically doing is, it's actually looking at the entire spectrum of information which is available in the digital space, combining in everything and giving you a result based on your requirement, correct? So the way designer function is actually completely changing. The way visualizer have to function is completely changing. It looks scarier, but the entire point is once your grounding is in terms of what you wanted to tell, correct? How you are going to tell and how you make visualize that will actually change, and the more differently you visualize is why people will come and see you, okay? Yes, differently you show, people will come and see, but what really makes somebody come is what you say. So there's no limitation for visualization is at this point is where we are at this point of time. How you actually seeing that on the screen may not be immediately, correct? Within 2-3 years, you will see those kind of major changes are going to take over in the film, and the parallel filmmakers, directors cannot say, "Oh, I'm only a film guy. I don't understand OTT now." Nobody can say, correct? Similarly, he cannot say, "Oh, what will happen in game? I don't know." Correct? A producer cannot ignore that because that's a massive market and people are there and people desperately wanted different content and they want to experience in multiple platform. That is not in our hand. What is in our hand is understand what is there and try to put our story everywhere. Correct? So that way, if you look at it, it's a challenging time. Other way you look at it, it's very chaotic time. You will see a lot of failures. You will see a lot of mess ups. Correct? But what you need to remember is once you stick on with it and try to understand the failures and move forward, you will be able to produce something extraordinary to make people to look at your work and enjoy your story. Okay, I think it's too much of a talk after lunch, so you can ask me any questions in my capacity. I'll answer. But thanks for listening to this long talk.
Hi.
Yep.
Hello. Yeah, my name is Mujahid Siddiqui.
Yep.
And thank you very much for this brainstorm session. So my question is, what are the responsibilities of VFX supervisor on the stage, on the shoot? And the second one is, what are the communication aspects of director? He or she should communicate to the supervisor, VFX supervisor.
Correct.
So these are my two questions.
It's an interesting question. So the simple answer is that as a VFX supervisor, if you want a traditional answer, he is supposed to understand what directors or other technicians need, correct? They will tell you, I have this particular problem, how will you do it? So as a visual effects supervisor, we have to come up with solutions to make his problem correct and move forward, right? So he might have a problem of staging something, he might have a problem of not able to do certain actions. We will understand that and we will give solutions that can be executed in a traditional compositing or 3D or whatever. Correct? That's what the VFX supervisor will do. And on location, he will understand that, he capture it, and he will get those layers, whatever is needed, correct? Carry it to the team, and communicate to them with clear measurements, lighting, preference, everything together, and they'll execute. Okay, that is the traditional VFX supervisor will do. Right now, if you're asking for what should be doing tomorrow, what is the potential? Because unlike production designer or a cinematographer, VFX designer's role is actually flex. It's open. Cinematographer doesn't have a role if he doesn't have a camera, right? Yes? Art directors or production designers will come in when there is a set to be constructed or setup need to be done, right? So that way it has been limited. VFX supervisor is not there. If I am going there, I'll ask him, okay, why do you want that particular action? Right? So director is saying, I want this to be done, this problem is there. As a VFX supervisor, I'll start asking, why do you want that? What is the story, right? So he says, okay, hero has to hit villain and he has to die, must be the setup, correct? So then I will ask, why do you have to hit like this only? You have multiple other possibilities, right? So the moment you tell the director there is more possibilities, and if it sounds exciting for him, he will actually start listening to me. Okay, I'll tell, it can be done with using this technology, whatever is there, but the hook is about how do you stage it better. Correct? So next generation VFX supervisor has the potential to utilize that, is what I will tell. Okay, that is your first question. Second one was, yeah. Yeah, that's also very important question. A lot of people think, okay, director need to know everything technically to get it done, right? So director, what, in my opinion, director has to be extremely clear about is, should be his story, his vision, and the drama in that particular scene what he's shooting, correct? How he get it is the technician's role, correct? So if the director was able to explain his purpose of that scene, explain the purpose of that action, I think that is the best, instead of getting into, normally what happens, a lot of directors thinks, I don't know technically, people will think, so I'll see a lot of making of videos, understand some blue screen, some terminology, motion capture, can you do, correct? So the moment you put that, your entire purpose of the scene is forgotten. The technician may not get it. So he may not be able to give you the best solutions. So director, 100% stick to his story, his emotion, and his staging, correct? And let supervisor or other technician give you ideas, correct? Then director need to cross-check, is he just bluffing or can it be done? He'll say some footage and say, somebody did it like this. It doesn't matter. Can you do it or can you make it happen is his concern, correct? So not get carried away by technological jargon, because so many things are going to come and it's going to confuse like hell. So basically get back to your essence of your story and see what is needed. And for the technician also, not get too much of carried away by that guy did it like this guy did it like this is the technology. There's no hard and fast rule to do it like this, because this is not science. Visual effects is not science, it is based on science, correct? But it is actually cheating, number one cheating. Magic is cheating, right? But you believe it is happening. So you need to make that belief, people saying that, oh, it is really happening, correct? So there, you need to find multiple ways to do it. So just think back, see, can I do it? Not somebody else do it, correct? Or can I have the team to do what I am imagining is what a VFX supervisor do. Normally what you do is, okay, that film, they did it like this. So we will shoot it like this. So once after shooting, that film did it somewhere and they not accessible or no money is there, and you will get some substandard output. So that kind of mess ups we should not do. Yeah. Producer talking. Yeah, because it's one of the most important factor for filmmaking, because it's all start from budget, right? So very simply put, starting point is you need to have a decent, clear, cleanly described scene, or your script is there. Then your budgeting become believable to start with. That is what we lack most of the time. Our film started rolling, then only things will come, so it become haywire. That is reality. But if you have a script, a good VFX supervisor or producer can actually do some kind of estimations, okay? To simply put, I'll look at one scene, I'll do some kind of duration. Okay, this scene is about 2 minutes, correct? Out of this, I am imagining there is going to be this 5 shots to tell the story. In this 5 shots, this 2 shots are going to be digital extension or something. Technically, I'll do a basic breakdown, correct? If the director is good, he already had some kind of idea. So you cross-check with him and confirm. Time, number of shots, it can be 4 or 5, something here, 10%, 20%, it's okay. The moment you get that, we will actually divide in terms of what are the techniques need to be used. So simple compositing is one thing. if you want to build the entire set and characters and animate, so depending on that complexity, we can arrive at numbers. So we look at, is there a characters, is there locations, is there any other kind of effects, like that some categories are there. We'll apply that, we'll put that number, fact one number will come in, correct? That is the starting point, correct? Then it get into execution, next level of detailing. That is, production designer will already have some design for location. So we can look at it and say, this much is digital, this much is live, we can mix it like that, we can adjust the budget. So it is about, first you arrive at a thumbnail budget, we will work, is there a possibility to go up or less? We'll arrive at another second level of budget, correct? Then producer says, no, I don't have a budget. My film is only Malayalam, it only have this much of view, I need to cut it down. Then we'll again go back to look at the technique we are thinking of doing it, correct? So now, normally if you do one model, do this process, it's going to take 100 rupees, correct? So can I work another way around? Is there any way of, other way of doing it? If you look at it, you will definitely find a way. So I'll tell, okay, possible, but ask cameraman not to use the drone. Make a camera move like this, right? Or you limit this action with this particular lens scene, or 10,000 ways we can do, correct? Only we'll have this in the background. We won't show digital characters closer. Immediately your budget is gone 1/4. 100 rupees become 25 rupees the moment you have characters in the background. Okay? So there'll be n number of ways to solve it, correct? That is a real fun part of it, which nobody really would like to get in. By then, we are in some other trip. So these are ideal scenario. But it is extremely possible, perfectly possible to get a workable budget.
Hello. Thank you very much. Here I'm at
Sure.
the back. Hi.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. Just wanted to ask you as a writer,
Yeah.
So I have a perception that VFX is it's an expensive medium.
Right.
So so when I'm writing, do I have to put this constraint of budget in mind when I'm writing? Do I limit my imagination, or do I write all out and then come to the VFX studio to ask for budget? Because most of the time writers and directors also ask, what is the budget estimate of the film?
Yeah,
So
correct.
just trying to understand.
Yeah, I completely. It's a again important question, and I'll say you just go ahead and do it because I'll get job. But what I frankly tell is, when you're writing, I don't think you should think about how it get executed.
Yeah. So the only constraint in mind is, see, when you're making something as popular as Bahubali,
Yeah.
which is which serves a mass medium.
True.
So
Yeah.
then we can go all out and
Yeah.
write,
Yeah.
right? But let's say I'm doing something which has to do with the environment,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So then I have to think about it, that
Yes.
who are my audience, and does it actually serve a pan-India audience or not? And do I have to think about the budget,
Right.
keeping in mind I'm the
Yes,
first time writer actor for feature
Correct.
film.
Correct.
So all those things, the details that go into it, that's the one thing that
Yeah, I'm coming to that answer only because there is a conception that when it comes to visual effects, it's expensive, right? How do you say expensive is based on what you are comparing with, right? Actual location, if you can go and shoot, there's no point recreating that, right? So coming back to your question of a writer, you are actually trying to communicate some idea, right? You want, as an environmental cause, something you need to communicate, correct? So what is come to your mind to illustrate that better, you write, because there's no charge for writing, right? What happens is, when you write without any limitation, what is really in your head is clearly on the paper. It cannot go beyond, correct? Then once it is cleared, I'm saying, I want to show 100 elephants, correct? If I know that is your vision, I will look at it and say, where is this 100 elephant coming from? Where is this idea coming from, right? To get that grandeur, I will give you another solution for it, right? It must be just one elephant is going out of the frame and this entire area destructed. Lot of footmark, correct? Visually, we can solve the same thing multiple ways, right? Film has a fantastic possibility because it only show what the director wants you to see, correct? Unlike a VR, audience will go all over the place. They can look all over. Film, you only see that. So just show what is needed, and visual effects can actually enhance that. Right? So now, if it is for a informative thing, correct? This motion graphics is extensively effective. So you may not have to go to photoreal animation, which is more expensive. Motion graphics and visual illustration based movement animation will communicate much better. So you have different ways to tell that we'll be able to see. You don't need to follow what Bahubali is a photoreal entertainment film world, correct? But other may not be there. So depending on the genre of the things, you can actually fool around so many ways. So I constantly tell writers, first draft, let it be your complete madness of whatever you think. Then how do you visually make it more effective is the director's call, and that technicians will help. Definitely visual effects is another bad point for visual effects. My point of view is everybody think visual effects is to save cost. If you look at the definition, they'll say impossible action, and to save cost we use visual effects.
In
Yeah.
that case, my argument would be that if VFX actually saves costs,
Yeah.
can I actually put it in a documentary? Because
Yes.
making documentary in India is
Yes.
another task
Yes.
altogether.
Yes.
So do you think that like being an Indian filmmaker,
Yeah.
do I have this? Can I have this dream of putting a documentary VFX in a documentary? Is there a possibility on a smaller budget?
If you ask me, I'll say yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Smaller budget. It's an important thing, correct? You have to be very practical about budget, and you have to be very clear about your vision,
Sure.
correct? The moment your vision is there, within this budget, giving you a solution is my problem. That is my specialty. Or a visual effects guy has to give you 10,000 options because there's no one way of showing it, correct? But you say, I only have this budget. I want the Titanic to ship sink like exactly like what is done. It doesn't make sense,
Sure.
correct? But if you want that emotion and impact,
Yeah.
I am in the game.
Okay. Perfect. I'm talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, are we running out of time? We can meet outside also, not a problem. Any other question? Or is it too much of confusing talk? Yeah, I think briefly I'll show you some small clip. So whatever samples I have shown is all kind of work I have done over a period of 20 years, not really looked at it like that. Just remind me the time, sorry. So we have another? Yeah, sure. So not just Bahubali. So this is an interesting project where there is a for a film in Malayalam, which is supposed to be one of the very low budget industry. Okay, normally productions are done at the cost of 10 crores and 15 crores, and superstar films are 20 crores is what we are talking about, correct? And where we are challenge is about making a tiger, which is like Life of Pi tiger, correct? Because the already standards are set how the tiger can look in a film, correct? So the challenge is about how do you turn that around. Technically, if you look at it, you have to build a tiger. There's no other choice. We have to build it. So you need to understand its muscle structure, everything, right? Then get into the action, performance, and to some extent, we'll also control the actions. This actually built about 6 months it took to build, build and animate, rig, muscle simulation, all those things. Then once you started rendering, quite a lot of problems come because the fur is bloody expensive to run. It system doesn't work. So we have to come up with lot of cheating techniques. So instead of using one tiger, we had specific tiger for different range of shots. So extreme long shot, we hardly had 50% of the fur which is really required for the thing, correct? So that way we simplified quite a lot. Certain close-ups, we deleted all the other part of the tiger so that things doesn't become heavy for system. So we have to find multiple ways to how we went. But shooting, so we have one actor doing that performance here. So you see one fellow in blue, he is actually the tiger. We'll replace it with a digital tiger, but it's a fighter who is doing that action. So once you do that, you will see the bed is there down, leaves are not properly clear. So to get realism, you need to have the leaves and everything moving as the digital tiger goes. So after the animation is done, we have to animate the leaves also, correct? The interaction. So all this dust flying, all those are another layer of animation, right? So simulation we call it, correct? So for this particular shot, definitely there will be about 5-6 extra layers of simulation to bring in that realism. The more you put it, it look more real. So a lot of times, good animation also fails because the interaction is not proper. You might have photoreal character moving on a road, but there's no interaction on the, or footprint won't come there, or with that dust won't move, or the wind is not affecting his skin. All those things will actually make it look fake. So a lot of cover up need to be done such that, so that it. So the joke within us is for visual effects, when you build something, it looks so perfect. When you build a pillar, it'll be precise, 90 degree like that. In real life, it won't be like that. How much ever precise you try to build anything, it won't be perfect. So we build perfectly and make it, break it somewhere to make it look real is what we do. Correct? So steps, if you see, all the edges won't be perfect, right? Because of the stitch, there is one thing here, it is not going smoothly. Technically, these are all flaws, right? To make it look believe, we have to build all this thing into our digital construction. So that is the challenge. How do you make it look more unreal in that? So now see, something like this, he is fighting with a snake. So we'll be shooting with a dummy. Correct? It has its own challenges. Later on, we need to replace that dummy. So the snake, we have to cover up that area. And if the snake is moving, we cannot put an animated snake, just dummy like that. Correct? Dummy doesn't move. So we will animate. So some areas of the body will be placed. So that we have to physically go frame by frame and paint whatever information is not there. So doing visual effects, first level, 40% is very easy. Technically, anybody can do it, correct? Next 60%, 70%, you need to have some more eye, you need to rework and do it, correct? The moment you want to go quality beyond 80, 90%, it is extremely tough because every small detail will start mattering. All of you would have written exam, right? To pass an exam, you can study just before the exam. One day before the exam you study, you can actually pass, right? But if you want 60%, you can actually learn during there'll be what you call study leave. If you learn, you can get 60%. Correct? If you want to go beyond 80, you sit in class full time, listen and study, you will get about 80%. If you want to go beyond 90, or if you're precise about 100, absolutely no time. You have to keep learning everything, because one question you miss, you will miss that 1% of mark, right? Everything, you just, some people will study question paper, 10 question papers, that pattern if you follow, you will for sure win 60%. But 100%, you go for 100% means there's no chance, and whatever you do also can actually miss. Are you willing to take that route? Then it is exciting. If it is not, this will be a painful process. So now look at the hand he is holding. Like the moment I put the snake, it has to squeeze. So we might do some manipulation so that hold it properly. All kind of manipulation will come. Why I'm repeating this is you all would have seen making of videos, right? And everybody learned visual effects looking at making of videos. It is actually fake. It make you believe visual effects can be done so easily. Nothing happen, nothing comes so easily. Whoever does it, I'll give it in writing, I'm ready to challenge. Because it's extremely painful and all the things are edited and you'll say, oh, we did it and we used that and most of them will be some promo for some software or technology or something like that. But fundamentally, if you really go to the artist and us, they would have gone through hell to get something right. So this is another session, but I seriously didn't want to. So if you look at it, to make this fellow believable, you have to make a snake and you need to have all that dust on the part of the body. Then it has to breathe, correct? And that has to, once it's breathing, it has to interact with this. All those things need to be digitally manipulated later, then only you can get it. So there's another saying in visual effects is we don't complete a shot, we'll just abandon the shot. How much ever we'll add. That's it. If I get any of the shot, I only see problems in every shot because I know what all I didn't complete. Correct? So that we will try to attempt next time, or, oh, I messed it up shooting like this. There's another way of shooting I will think about. Correct? That's what make me keep doing this work. Otherwise, it's quite painful. What is a challenge means what you didn't do last time, you need to do. So there is a war sequence where everything is digital, nothing real in this. So you need to have simulation of the crowd moving, only this circle. So this sequence is very interesting because when director was explaining this, nobody was actually believing. The story you would have seen, the cloth will go and it'll catch fire and it'll destroy an army. But when you're explaining, okay, how does a cloth can destroy an army? Sounds ridiculous, right? So then we did the previs, tested out shot by shot, made everything. Emotionally it is working, then we went into making. So this is, I'm really proud about this scene. Believable, the snake to make look believable, I thought we are able to achieve something. Because a lot of small, subtle movements we added. Normally, in animation you want to look, you can look one turn. But for a snake to look, there is a hesitation, there is a thinking, there is a confusion, because we are thinking like a snake. Snake is in this one, so there is something is going wrong. He want to go forward, but there is something he's looking. So all this thought process, we try to put it acted out and see how we can put it in the snake. When you're acting, we are acting like a human. Snake cannot act like that. That has to come with a body movement, correct? Even a subtle one frame here and there actually can change a lot. So again, very big challenge because he's an actor with his skin is exposed and we have a digital hand which skin has to perfectly match with the live body, but there is nothing to separate. Usually what happens is you have a digital, there'll be some separator, some element, and then there'll be live. So here, smoothly, seamlessly, we need to blend because he's not wearing any shirt. So human skin was this is, even if you visualize, there are a lot of technical challenges because system power comes here, right? So simulations, nothing but it is using physics. We cannot do frame by frame animation for this. We need to understand physics. You will do particles and you will apply some gravity. You will apply some force. Based on that, that particle behave the way it behave, correct? So you simulate and see whether it's moving. So we'll take some references of how we want. So multiple times you need to simulate to get the kind of feel you want, the scale you want. It's very easy to put like this, if you put it in an actual scale, that is kilometers by kilometers. But if you put that size in a system, it won't even open the file. So we need to miniaturize. So 1 kilometer will become 1 meter. So the system will handle. But according to that, you need to change the other parameter. Your gravity has to change, the weight has to change. So how do you balance this thing to get this realism is the challenge with all the simulations. So if you look at it here, only that people, two guys, this is the only live element there. Somebody is traveling here. Only the live shot. Rest everything is digitally created. Because this has to simulate and it has to interact with the tree, and the tree leaves has to go violently. All trees cannot fall in the same way. Each one should have different force. Something will fall like this, something will resist and fall. Then only that violence will come. So how much ever detail you add, it will work. So now, if I stop and watch, you will see some trees falling before this hit itself. We've seen that problem, but again, pre-simulate is tough, and because the shot is happening like that, it passes, and everybody liked it. But in my, each time I see, oh my God, I can see the tree is falling before it gets hit. That's another exciting thing, because when you do something, it's like a magician do a magic trick and hope the audience doesn't catch the trick. That kind of fear always is there. So I don't watch first day show. So this is another humongous problem, because this is Kanyakumari, correct? So you have, people are familiar with this. There's a temple, there's a statue. If you notice, there are people there running, correct? These are all digitally created. Building this is tough because you cannot have references. You cannot go around this to take photographs. At least photograph is that we can actually build. We only used to seeing from one angle. So how do you imagine what is around based on the Google map? Google map really helped us. But get the overall scan and build everything and add all those kind of detail and then simulate, because the water has to interact with it's a massive, technically very challenging. So if you don't get that unpredictable splash of water, that violence will be lost. Normally when you simulate, it look very nicely, it will be flowing. So how do you get that madness? So you need to, even though the shape is like this, we'll put another shapes for that it will break up. So basically it's all about trial and error, and you need to visualize, and all this possible only if you're emotionally clear what the director wants. Here is the destruction. It's not about tsunami hitting this. It's about the destruction, and people should feel, my God, life is end. Okay? So that is how you need to bring in the aspect of performance into your simulations. So city destruction, it's very, we can make one and repeat everything. Each tree looks different. It's going to be expensive. You have roads, vehicles, people walking. Big screen was fantastic. Even now, because of this, we are not able to see. But every small kind of detail we are able to add to make it look more real. So underwater, all the elements are flowing in water. So it has to give a feel that it is flowing in water, and it also interact with the body and bounce. So even though we shot the character, we have animated that character also like that and made it interact. So a fun part is about detail. How much detail is good enough for a shot to pass? Making that judgment is the real fun part in doing visual effects. So this is done in 2011, and that doing hair is very difficult task. Each and every strand is not controllable. Now you have different plugins are coming. Those days, we're not able to calculate. So we've trying to figure out, we actually wrote some code to get this kind of problem. Biggest problem was the hair will penetrate. One hair and another hair will penetrate. How do you avoid that when you're animating? Correct? For that, we actually got some programming done was the so these are all very standard fight sequence. You have extensions. This had a lot of design challenge because if you physically perfectly recreate a mosquito, people think it is an alien. Correct? People perfect recreate. We are not used to seeing that mosquito like that close. And lot of images, what you are seeing is animated kind of cartoon. There is a understanding of mosquito. Nobody has really looked at the mosquito like that. Correct? So we had to make a balance between, actually the eyes are wrong, but body we had some manipulations. There are different kind of mosquitoes. Some mosquitoes, there are some tiger mosquitoes. The moment you put it, you don't even know it's a mosquito. That many varieties are there. Correct? So how do I choose certain things and make it work for a film, and people still need to make it to feel it's a mosquito. Here, advantage is actually a talking mosquito. So we can take little liberty, but perfectly copying a real mosquito also doesn't work, we realize here. Sometimes we need to do that manipulations. All these are to quite an extent is a simpler work only. You have a environment, you have a background, you have some crowd communication, but once you try to make it real, the kind of pixel level detail you need to go is need a lot of patience and skill is what it shows. So some of these shots we do so precise, but if you look at that set, you can immediately feel it's set. The finish is not good. So even some great animation you do, scene will go for flat because the props which is made is not properly finished, or lighting is not done properly, can actually kill your effort. Simple things like this. You use a production van to shoot and replace it with some age-old vehicle, because that van, if you want to go and get it for the shoot, it is expensive, and most of the time these vans won't move. So we'll, for one shot, two shot, we'll just replace it. So a lot of these kind of things are exciting to do while working on, because you will give, filmmakers always will have a problem because they're trying to recreate something. They constantly hit with problems. So when you're there, you'll be constantly telling, okay, why don't you do it? I'll manage it like that. So a lot of discussion happen like that, and improvisation happens. So tigers is there. This is something, sometimes what happens is you'll tell them, you do it like this, VFX, it's going to cost more. Then they say, okay, we'll try to do live. Then they try to shoot it here. They went and shot it in a river and doing the action. And finally scene is working because it's not working. After the edit, they realize scene is not working because you need to have a storm and it should look scary, and they're not able to do it. So using the entire. So how do you bring in that elements of fear into the scene? So it's a double expense for the film, but they will do it because that scene has to work. It's a critical scene. So they overspend. So a lot of cleanup and saving also happens digitally. So like this, if I go, every shot will have some story or other to tell. I think I'll stop it here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for the time, and I'll be really happy to interact with you if you have any other doubts. Thanks.
So we'll be happy to take questions outside, right, sir? And we have our next session on wildlife filmmaking, which is going to start at 3:45. So see you there. Thank you.